All right, you're all set.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:02, Thursday, December 10th. Meeting notices pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A, Section 18, and Governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the Office of the Attorney General website. Town will persevere to conference call all capabilities regularly for other parties to listen and participate accordingly. If not, we will post on the town's website an audio recording as soon as possible after this meeting. Okay. Call to order. And now for public, this meeting is being recorded. Call for public comment. No public comment. Okay, review of November 5th Water Commissioner meeting minutes. Have you reviewed the minutes, John?
Yes, I have.
Can I have a motion to accept them?
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the previous meeting, November 5th.
I second the motion. All in favor?
John Kane, aye.
Dave Meswar, aye. Okay, signing of the elderly rate and commitments.
So Dave, just so you're aware, of the elderly rate, there were a handful that we received this past few weeks.
I see.
Christie has a summary sheet showing all those that do meet all the criteria, and there are 5 of them that do not meet the criteria. So you should probably review those 5 that do not, and just make sure that you decide how you want to proceed on those.
Okay. The ones that do meet the elderly, can we just have a motion to accept those?
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the ones that do meet all the requirements.
Okay, I second. All in favor?
John Kane, yes.
Dave Meswar, yes. Okay, now the only ones that you have here are the ones that don't meet?
That's
Do you have-
correct.
Okay,
The copies. So I wanted you guys to be able to look over, what they checked and what they didn't check. If they left something blank, that would make them, they didn't meet all the requirements necessary.
okay. I see the first one, Mark Monday, not supported by anyone else living in the house. He didn't check that.
Correct.
And there was a couple of them like that, right?
Yes.
Only meets the age requirement. Does not meet the age requirement. This is not his permanent residence. All right, I'm gonna go through them one at a time. Mark Monday. Now, did he give any indication that he is not, or is it something he missed, or does he have more income? Somebody else living in his house?
It was just checked. A lot of these people, it is available on our website. So a lot of these people I didn't talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's just saying that the only requirement that he didn't meet is that he not supported, or that he may be supported by someone else, does that mean I think we should look into that. I mean, if he's
Yeah,
basically in a household and he's over the age requirement, I think that we should let that go through. Unless he's living with his, trying to get it and he's living with his, kids or something like that. But he owns the property and it's his permanent place of
Yeah.
residence.
Yeah, we could reach out to him and ask for some clarification on that. We could also see if there's other people living in the house. I mean, if there's a family living in the house and he's, say the grandfather, in that situation, I'm not sure it would apply. That may be the reason here. I'm not sure.
yeah.
Maybe it's worth getting more information on these.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table this one to the next meeting or for some clarification.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do that for a lot of these. The next one, Susan Mayer. She's disabled and handicapped. I guess we don't have a handicap rate, but
In the past, you guys have denied, especially when we did that. We went over all of the elderly rates. What was that, 2 years ago or a year ago? We were very strict about the age requirement.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that, I mean, unfortunately, the age requirement is basically what makes it the elderly rate. It's not the handicap disabled rate. So I think
yeah.
that's-
I know we don't have a handicap rate, but maybe it's something we can put into new business and start a discussion on. What would be the criteria for somebody who is handicapped?
Do you happen to know what her water bill was most recently? Because I'm sure we're getting some of these because of the higher water bills.
I can look it up.
Okay, let's move on for now to Elizabeth Richton, Lakeview Street. The only thing she checked was she's 65 or old. So we probably should table that and confirm with her. Maybe she just didn't, she only checked one because that's what she thought she had to do.
Okay, yeah, let's table that one as well.
Okay.
I think-
The 15 Eagle Street, it was a minimum billing. And that property does have sewer as well.
Okay,
Okay.
so she didn't have an exuberantly high water bill or anything like that.
No, she doesn't, her history doesn't show that either. It's
Yeah.
about 12,000 gallons. She's almost at the minimum.
Yeah, I'd like to table this one too until we discuss the handicap. If she is on a low income, I hate to deny somebody that is deserving, but we need to have some kind of standard. I can't just have everybody who's got a handicap pass getting on some kind of handicap. But we can discuss that after. I would say they're all missing something. Can I hear a motion to table all 5 of these? Ray Lewis, Powder Mill Road. This is not my permanent place of residence.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table these, the Mark Monday, Susan Meyer, Elizabeth Richton, Ray Lewis, and Chester Orgzalek until the next meeting so we can get some clarification and see if maybe they just misfilled out the thing or if they're not the head of household and they're not the ones that are responsible for the bill, we obviously giving them the rate.
Or it's not their permanent residence. They don't meet the requirements, then we can deny them, but it looks like some of them actually don't, but some of them look like they may have just missed out on this. And
Okay.
by then we can maybe have a discussion about the disability. Okay, so I second the motion. Any discussion? Okay. How do you vote?
John Kane, aye. Yes.
Dave Meswar, aye. Those 5 are seconded.
So we'll reach out to those 5 individuals
Yeah, just,
back at the next meeting.
okay. Okay, now it's time for the DPW's report, but it's 6:13. Do we have our appointment?
There's no one in the waiting room as of right now.
Okay, then
All
we'll
right.
continue. We'll continue with the DPW's report. It's
Okay, a couple things on the agenda. First of all, at our last meeting, we talked about the lead and copper sampling that was taken at the schools and the rec center. 3 samples that had detectable levels of lead, and 1 of those was above the action level. We did reach out to the schools and the rec center, and from what I understand, they have devices, at least at the school, about the rec center yet. But the school has replaced those devices. We can't test any of those. That's one of the requirements is the pass the annual activity in the school system before testing can happen. So as you probably are aware, the schools are right now closed. They're in the fully remote for the being. So when schools reopen, then we can look at taking samples at those locations once again.
Randy,
Item
is
2,
there-
water bills. So
All right.
go ahead,
Is there any
John.
reason why there might be detectable levels of lead? Was there any like work done or anything like that, or is it just happened to be?
Old faucets.
It was likely these are older faucets. Yes, yeah. Kevin was aware of the locations. Likely the fittings and the faucets,
Okay.
which is a common cause for levels of lead. So what is nothing that's in our drinking water system. It's all within their internal plumbing.
Okay.
Second item here is water bills were issued and were due on November 18th, as you're aware. Follow up to that for those customers that did not pay the bill. Demands were sent out on November 30th, and they are due on December 14th. So we'll see how far we get with the demands. Unfortunately, because of the governor's order, we cannot versus, we wouldn't do that this time of year anyways. That's typically an activity that happens during the summer months. But we do have several customers that are still delinquent, not only in this bill, but prior bills as well.
I did see Westfield was having the same issue that we're having with the high water bills, and I talked to one of the water guys, and they basically said the same thing we all did: is everyone's been using more water, so it's just to put that out there. We're not the only ones dealing with this issue.
Yep, I did last week. And had a conversation with him, and yes, he's noticing a lot of higher water bills. There was a couple articles in the newspaper over the last couple of days, the Westfield News, about it as well. Item 3, water tank inspections. I'm still waiting for our vendor to do that this year. They were backed up due to COVID, but I'm waiting for their schedule when that will take place. And the last item is Emil from Sigma Water Systems. He's continuing with his backflow inspections. He was just in town the other day. I got some reports this morning from him. So he is busy doing that work. That's all I have in my report. The next page was a work order summary, just a handful of turnoffs over the past few weeks. There was a fire. I don't know if you're aware, there was a fire at a property on the College Highway yesterday. We did also shut that water service off.
okay. Is there still no one in the waiting room?
Nope, no one is there.
All right. I guess we can move to old business, the water moratorium.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, we had a discussion about, it came out during the discussion that we had with, so the proposed development on, Depot Street. And, the chairman of the planning board, Mike, was on the call here today. He had made a comment that the moratorium that the board put into effect at the end of August, he had some concerns about it, whether it was legal or not. And the suggestion that came out of the meeting was that we should reach out to legal counsel to verify a couple things, a couple concerns. One was whether the moratorium was properly notified in the advertisement. And I'm sorry, in the meeting minutes, a meeting agenda. And the second item was whether there should be a deadline on the moratorium. So we reached to our legal counsel, and there was some correspondence that's in your packet. It was an email that I had sent to legal counsel with the questions, and then there's a follow-up. I'm trying to find it here. Here we go. So Mark Beglane, Bacon Wilson, he's the town legal counsel. He reviewed this. I spoke to him directly as well. So first of all, he said that the posting was proper, and the board had the right to issue the moratorium at that time. He did suggest that so that people know when to expect the moratorium will be ended. And as well, in addition, he mentioned that there should be some plan in place goals, I guess, that we should work towards, so that you know, once those goals are hit, then the moratorium will be removed. So I don't know if you had a chance. Emails that I had sent, they're in the packet. But I think, first of all, Mark Beglane's first suggestion is talking about an end date on the moratorium. We should probably talk about that today, and put a date out there.
Okay.
So what is the
Then
goal?
we can talk about, you know, setting in.
What is the goal of the moratorium? You know, why I missed, you know, I wasn't here for that, you know, implementation of that. What is our goal with the moratorium? What are we trying to accomplish with it? Because I know Mike has an issue with the planning board and the development of the town and that kind of thing.
Well, I think, yeah, it was nothing to do with development per se. It was, you know, the water use this past year spiked 27% over last.
Randy.
We have well, two issues that came out of that. John,
Randy, you're breaking up a little bit.
do you say something?
All right. Yeah,
I guess I heard.
your video's locking. Is everybody else experiencing that or just me?
I can't hear Randy Brown.
Correct.
Let me move to a different spot, okay?
Okay.
I'm in a bad location.
I'm
Give
at
me a
work.
minute.
How bad can your location be?
Is that any better?
So far, good.
Okay, sorry. Must have been in a bad spot. This has been prone to happen around here. So the question is, why was the moratorium put in place? Two things. First of all, water spiked 27% this summer. As a result, we're basically running all of our equipment, all of our pumps, pretty much nonstop. We just could barely keep up with the demand. And the second item was that our water withdrawal permit caps the amount of water we can withdraw out of our own water well, out of our own wells. And that increase is going to push us up to or over that limit this year. So because of that, and not with the uncertainties of, I guess at the time, why the water use increase. The board decided to put the moratorium in place to kind of get an idea of, what's going on in the water system and how can or what needs to be done to bring the water back down to normal levels. And I think we can all agree that the use was probably primarily due to two reasons. One was COVID, so people were home more frequently, using more water. And the second was that this was a very dry summer, so there was a lot more outdoor use for irrigating lawns, filling pools, and whatnot. So until we really see what's happening, I would say probably next year, I think we need to have the moratorium in place so we're not going to come up against the same situation down the road. That's our concern is, to talk about the new normal with COVID. Well, what is the new normal? Is this a new normal? I know people that, their businesses have already closed up and they said, we're not coming back. You're going to work out of your house then. That's a permanent situation. Certainly not all businesses are like that, but I know a lot of businesses are still have their doors closed and people are still working at home right now. And we have no idea how long that's going to last.
So as far as the water restrictions, how are we enforcing those? Because I know my water bill was super high and my irrigation system had all sorts of issues. How are we able to enforce that more, that water restriction? I think that's a huge thing because a lot of these things we've seen have been irrigation problems, lawn watering, that kind of stuff, just wasting water during that time.
Yeah, it's hard to do. It's we do the best we can with the meter system. We can look at hourly readings. But we're also not monitoring that every day. A lot of times, people call us or the guys are out on the road and they see something. They alert us. And we have sent out, I don't know, you have the count, Christy, but we did send out a lot of notices this past summer, as well as a couple of fines. So I think the first step is usually a notice. We notice that you're using outdoor water use on such and such date and such time. Here's the regulations, make sure you comply with, your day of the week. And if they are a repeat customer, then they were issued a fine. And we wrote, I forget how many fines I wrote, a couple, probably less than 5. But it's hard to do. It's hard to quantify, especially when people are using their outdoor, they're irrigating their lawns, between midnight and 5 a.m. That's when a lot of it happens. And, it's you never see it.
Is there any way for the water meter system to, notice these cyclical usages, because that's what everyone's irrigation system is on that, it's preset every day their water comes on. Is there any way for that to notify us so we know that people are just continuously watering day after day after day?
Yeah, we had a conversation with the vendor about, and I asked that same question. And unfortunately, there's no set alerts or alarms in that system that would kind of trigger that use. Like there would be if there was a leak. The leaks is, it's a, if the water has been used for, doesn't hit zero for, I think, 24 hours or 48 hours, it sends an alert that there's a potential leak at that property. I don't think there's no alerts that are built in the system to quantify, okay, if there's a spike of water use between the hours of, midnight and 6 a.m. Unfortunately, that's not built in the system.
Oh yeah, so other than just going in and looking through everybody's water usage, that's the only way we'd be able to find that.
Yeah, so certainly we have neighborhoods that use are the biggest offenders of that, and we know those neighborhoods are. But yeah, instead of the only way to really quantify it is to go to each property's hourly data frequently, and check each one individually at a time. That's the only way to do it.
I think these water bills that people recently got are going to impact the water usage quite significantly. I think we're going to see quite a drop in that. I mean, that's the best way to get people to stop using water, is for them to realize how much they're using. So
I mean, I'm open to continue the discussion on being more proactive in finding the violations and seeking them out. But it's just not a simple problem. It would require a lot more manpower, a lot more activity on our part to do it. But maybe we could consider sending a mailing out to tell people that, you know, if it continues, the only way we're going to be able to do it is to raise water rates again to encourage conservation. Because I'm sure it's going to affect our statistical report this year and everything, because we didn't get more people, we just used a lot more water. And you know, stressing the infrastructure, the stuff that we have, we're going to have to look at some upgrades or whatever. I know that water main project, we could probably revisit that and get that, you know, get more capacity, but we're going to need to do something along those lines, and also do something along the lines of enforcing those restrictions a little more aggressively. So I don't think we're going to come to an answer today on either of those, but
I would like to hear from the planning board. You know, they've expressed quite a concern. I know we have a development that wants to happen going on. So Mike, what can you tell us? What are you looking for? You know, you're the one that really brought this up to us. And obviously if we're looking at this development from last meeting of a couple hundred units that's going to be using water, but also buying water, you know, what are you looking for from us?
So I guess my thought is, you know, we're in a time where development is starting to pick up. There's a lot of areas in Southwick that can be developed. I think Rob Levesque, you know, when at the last meeting mentioned that there was, I'm trying to look at my notes here, but I don't, like 4 or 5 different clients that he had, you know, and I know, you know, 1 or 2 of them. I don't know all of them. And I don't know what stages they're in as far as looking at projects, but my concern is that if a developer comes into Southwick, sees something that they may want to develop and hears that there's a water moratorium with no sort of set, you know, end date, no sort of criteria that are being looked at specifically, they may just see a vagueness that they don't, and just put that piece of land aside and go somewhere else. And so, you know, my thought was, you know, I'm not even sure you need a moratorium. I think you have the ability to say, you know, we're meeting, these are the numbers, and so we can't grant this right now. You know, we'll look at it in another month or 2 months or whatever it is. I mean, I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to look at an application. But I just want there to be some degree of data or facts that someone can look at and just be able to say, okay, you know, we see this, you know, we see this is the likely reason, so we're willing to take a chance here and develop here with the idea that we think we'll be able to, you know, get a water permit down the line. So, I mean, that's my concern from a planning board standpoint, is that, you know, we got a lot of things coming down the line, and I don't want to scare people away at what you know, I mean, I guess I perceive that this seems to be going on during the beginning of the pandemic when people were home. You know, people weren't able to go to school, weren't able to go to camps during the summer. You have the drought. You know, I don't see that being repeated next year. And so, I mean, that to me is the variable. So I think putting something that is a pretty large deterrent, I would think, to a lot of people, or potentially a large deterrent to a lot of people, may not be the way you want to go, you know, for the benefit of the town.
Yeah, I mean, the word moratorium does scare people away. And I mean, this year I've done probably 5 or 6 water installs in Springfield. And without any issues. Obviously they have the capacity and all that, but it does scare people away from the town. I think with COVID and all the things that happened this summer, the water bills going up higher and higher. We're going to see, like I said, that significant decrease in usage. But without having all three commissioners here, I'd hate to, really change anything. But I think we should revisit this, the next meeting with all three of us. We can come together and like you said, maybe make a case by case basis kind of thing and say, and we'll have the facts there rather than scare people away. Let them bring their ideas to us, what they want to do. And if it's, if we're talking about a couple of 1-inch lines, that's one thing. If it's a 300 unit, condo complex, that's another thing.
And the other aspect of it, John, is that I talked to Randy a little bit and Doug about this is, from a planning board standpoint, we are more than happy to reach out to Nick Bodega and John Vilas and perhaps other people and just say, listen, this is eventually, it sounds from talking to Randy like this becomes a political issue in large part, getting that cap raised or getting that cap renewed, whether it's raised or not, I suppose is a different issue. But, getting that addressed seems to be a political issue. So, we're willing to, from the planning board, reach out and say, listen, this is an issue in town. It's preventing development that we should, we can have here. And, we'd suggest that, this move up a little bit. And can you take any efforts to move it up a little bit? So that's on our agenda for, to talk about on, probably send out a letter. I wanted to talk to Nick and John before I sent out the letter and I just haven't had a chance to, but I'll probably try to talk to them tomorrow or Monday. And then send out the letter after the board meeting that we have on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think as far as that permit goes, we have a real case, for them to bump us up in the list and get that taken care of sooner than later. I think Nick Bodega and Mr. Vilas will help us out. So I would like to see that happen. We're a growing town. We're one of the smaller towns in the area that could use the help, just to push that permit through would be huge for us.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be a help. My only concern is if people are using the water for outdoor use and our statistical report gets askew. It was a little high last year. And if it's trending the other way, the DEP may be reluctant to expand a permit so that people in Southwick can have green lawns. So we may be looking at having to have an answer to curb the water restriction.
Although I will luckily
have a more aggressive take on the water restriction, as well as being able to increase our capacity for on the equipment. So I think if we start thinking about getting that water main up to full capacity coming in from Springfield, and maybe even start looking at upgrading a pump station so we can get the capacity. And if we do, if we get the capacity and we can't pump it, we get a permit extension and can't pump it or can't get it into the town, we're going to be in the same boat. So I think if we could show that something is happening in the way of the moratorium to make it, that we're doing our best to solve the problem, not just remove the moratorium so people can come in and then end up having to deal with it on the backside. I think we've got some pretty good, get some pretty good answers on the Springfield water main. I think that would be a big help, being able to get more, because it wouldn't require our withdrawal permit to be changed. So I think if we could do that, we'd be in a better place. And I think, sometime early next summer or midsummer, we should be able to look at the usage and have a good idea whether it's going to come back down or if it's going to spike again. So I'm okay with putting a deadline on it for, say, I don't know, July 1st or even August 1st, and then revisiting it then and making any changes. And in the meantime, shore it up with some plans of how to fix the problem and get development, because we're not gonna turn down development because of water, that's for sure. we'll figure out how to get water. It's just, we're gonna have to start looking at it now.
Yeah, but I think, and I appreciate that, but I just think that, the concept turns down development, right? I mean, it's not that it just doesn't get to you. You're not going to have a chance to make that decision. It's not going to get to you. They're going to look and have preliminary conversations with whether it's the planning board or whoever, and find out that there is this moratorium, and that's going to, put a halt to it. That's my concern. I don't, from and I don't know y'all, but being at your meetings the last few, I mean, it seems like you guys are pretty reasonable with the way you deal with things, and I don't have any doubt that that would be the case going forward. But we need to get it there. We need to get them to have that conversation with you, and you gotta give them a carrot enough to get there. And keep them in town to develop that property.
Just can I add something here? Just as an operator of this system, we're maxed out. We cannot put any more water into the system, period, when it's like that. I mean, this isn't just this summer. It was the summer before. We're peaked out. There's no more water to deliver to the system. That's what you guys need to understand. That it's just, until there's another well or another source, there's just not enough water. You cannot I can't put any more water into the system. Everything I have is running. And if one fails, it's a huge problem. Huge problem. And they're not all new. It's, this isn't, it's a big problem.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're at with the, just the capacity. We're at capacity. That's
Correct. That's well said.
Yeah.
We're at capacity right now.
So-
Until there's another source coming in, you can't add any more water to the system. It's physically impossible. Unless you add a new tank, bigger 2 million gallon tank for another reserve, you have to have some other backup because there's just not enough. Everything we have was running full bore. Couldn't put any more water into the system 24/7.
That's the problem we're going to see is if we do have to supply more customers and this happens again, and we're not, if we have no way of enforcing the water use restrictions, that kind of thing, then we're depriving all of our customers of water.
All the customers, right.
And
the fire protection as well.
Yeah, and
Fire protection as well.
running the equipment to the maximum. I really don't see a problem with us putting this off for, till the next meeting and maybe look into some, the capacity issue. If we can send that letter out and the permit, get that going as well. And then I'd like to have all of us here before we change any wording, just because I'm new to the commission.
Okay, you want to make a motion to table?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting and figure out where we need to go with this, how the moratorium, just that wording alone is scaring away development. But I want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a bind where we can't provide the water if they do decide to build here. So I'd like to make a motion to table this issue to the next meeting.
I second it. All in favor?
John Kane, yes.
Dave Meswar, aye. Okay. Is
Thanks,
still
gentlemen.
nobody?
You guys may also want to reach out to Rob Levesque for the next meeting and just invite him to talk about it. I mean, I think his views on it would be, certainly more informed than because I don't get, the applications until they get to a certain stage. So he would have a lot more of that preliminary information than I would.
Yeah, and then we would be able to see, who are we scaring away? I think that would be a big deal, because if we're scaring away some good projects that would help us increase our capacity on both sides, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. So I would like to do that. Reach out to Rob and have him tell us what's going on in the area and where people are going.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Is there still nobody in the waiting room?
Nope.
Okay,
And I reached out to both people, gave them all the meeting information and their times. And I also verified via phone, so.
okay,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
you can.
Thank you. First, is it possible for people to install a second meter if they wanted to measure water that wasn't going to go into the sewer, for example? I know it's probably a bad time to ask with a watering ban, but a couple people asked me that, and I'd like to get back to them on that. At their expense, of course.
Yes, we have a policy that they can put irrigation only, but they have to pay for the second service and the second meter. For most people, it's just not cost effective to do so.
Yep.
But if they are on sewer and they do a lot of watering, they might be.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug, just so you know, that policy is posted on their website. It's called the Secondary Water Service Policy.
Nobody reads the website, unfortunately.
It does have to be.
And I know,
Wherever
know,
I'm supposed to put it.
but I probably spoke to 5 people, and I'll be honest, I didn't see it either. So I'll make note of that. Thank you. The other thing that, to what Chairman Doherty had brought up. Oh, he snuck out when I wasn't looking. He's got a point. I mean, you can look around town and look at real estate transactions that have happened or were fairly recent to give you an indication of potential development that's coming in. So, the one on Depot obviously is one, right? That's a no-brainer. That's had a sale pending sign, and they've been talking about that for a while. There's a big parcel that just got lopped off down at the very south end. Actually, that's probably not even on the water system yet, but maybe they'd be interested in bringing water up from there. I don't know. Way down the end of Mort Vining, literally at the Connecticut border. There's plenty of other parcels in town that have recently changed hands, or they were, they had been in preliminarily in front of the planning board as kind of an informal discussion. But you can just see, and you can see with the success that they had at the Greens, East and West, and even at Noble Steed, that there's development pressure. So,
Yeah.
And I get it that there's no water. We need to, I guess, as a town, we're going to have to try to figure out how we move that. And, I had talked to Mike about talking to Nick and John as well about, bringing that forth, because I think it's important to keep moving that forward. And if that permit's been sitting at DEP for years without getting the review that's needed, but even if you got it, like Mr. Soper says, doesn't matter. We can't pull any more out of the ground anyway to put it in the system. So even if they doubled what we could draw, it doesn't matter. So we have to really look at that and what the capital is. And then to what Mr. Kane said, I think one of the things you do have to look at is kind of the 2 ways to look at the rates, right? As far as, it would be arduous to put on a detail officer or have the night shift go around, drive around town and look for watering, right? And start slipping tickets in people's things. But you could also take a look at either adding a 4th tier to the rates, or that 3rd step of your rates becomes onerous, right? And it only becomes punitive. But your average home, if you look at your water usage, and I'm not an expert, you guys would have to take a look at the numbers and say, okay, 90% of the people fit in the bottom rate, right? They don't graduate to the next tier. 20% are in the next tier, and 3 or 10% are in the top tier. And then you go look at that 10% and go, yeah, these are all the guys with irrigation systems that are still running them, even with a water ban on. Double that 3rd rate, right? Make it punitive to run that. If there's a watering ban and they're still willing to do it, you can get your fine essentially that way, and hopefully drive down, that just drive, like to what John said was, hey, the water bills are going to drop because people got these crazy bills this last time, so people are going to pay attention. Well, I think this is another piece of that pie, and I know, Randy and Christy and I had talked to the company, the consultant company, about, potentially providing ways for people to take a look at their water usage. It seemed to be, to me and Randy and Christy, extremely expensive to provide that service, so that people aren't shocked by their water bill when they get it. But, and then, I'm pleasantly surprised, if you will, that Westfield is having the same thing. So it's not something wrong with our meters or something else. Westfield's having the same thing. But I read the article in the Westfield paper, it was yesterday or today, that they're actually thinking of providing that same kind of data to their customers. And obviously they probably have a bigger rate base that they could spread a significant cost out to than we could. But, it goes to what Randy said. I'm just trying to tie it all together to what Randy said about, we can't pick and choose or pick out the data of who's using the most water or who's watering their lawn basically, or who, who's breaking the watering ban based on the way that we see the data today. We can rank, I guess you can rank users based on, your top 100 water users and pick at those, right? And then look at them and go, yeah, that makes sense. This doesn't make sense. That must be a watering system. And then when you figure that out and knock it down, run a next top 100, once you take out 20 or 30 of the ones that were running, and then run it again and do it again. But it's a very manual process, but that's the way to approach it, to try to add back capacity that's being put on people's lawns or, dumped right back into the ground. But I guess from a water commissioner standpoint, there probably should be, and this is probably the right time to do it, is more coordination with planning and land use as far as, hey, what does the forecast development look like according to what you guys are seeing? And because you guys are, what, 5-6 years out? Even if we said go add 30% water capacity tomorrow, where are you, 5-6 years to turn that on, literally? So you guys got to plan the way that they plan with some of this stuff that's going on, to try to walk with them and not just be, okay, we're the water department and you're the planning department and, this is that department, and kind of figure it out. And to try to make sure that the capacity can keep up and being able to pay your bills, but that the capacity can keep up with the growth. And hopefully and maybe there's some coordination that can go on as well with developers that want to develop. They often have to put in significant infrastructure to get into their development. And if it becomes worthwhile, that they're willing to have a partnership. We had a couple of cases on an economic development level that I know Randy and I had worked on, to try to get, a public-private partnership to get water or sewer to different locations that we don't have them now, but they were required for a particular development. So you may have to continue to look at that too.
Yeah, I know as far as some of the developing, like Noble Steed was planning to use the water system, and then they backed out and used private wells. So,
yep.
I know on the west side of town, any development on the west side of town, my guess is they would probably go private wells because the water system doesn't extend there, and for a developer to put that kind of infrastructure in would just be cost prohibitive. So
well, right now that's a blessing, I guess.
it is,
Right.
unless we
right.
can find a well site somewhere on the west side of town and start building the system in that direction. Or
You know,
the-
and
Is it like-
Noble's-
if you look at it like, Comcast is doing at their data cap, when you go over that certain amount of data, they jack the rate up like crazy. And most of the people, you're not using water, flushing your toilets, taking showers and that kind of thing up to that, you're not using 500,000 gallons going to the bathroom and washing yourself. Those are the people that are watering their lawns, extensively and not following the water ban. And I think that's something that's important. Out here, I'm out in Eastern Mass right now, and they enforce these water bans like crazy out here. They got people driving around, and I mean, they obviously have more money to do it, but we have to figure out some way to enforce the water ban during the summer, because it's really becoming an issue.
The only thing with jacking the top tier up is we'd have to consider agriculture. I mean, you'd be putting a real hardship on the farms on the east side of town. If you put a heavy penalty on the top tier. So that would be another thing to consider, whether or not we give an agricultural rate based on the middle tier.
Yep.
And anybody doing agricultural irrigation will have that.
Sure.
But
I mean, that's
then
what
you
I'm
then you
talking about
get
is exactly. And that's why you have to have this discussion, because, not everybody thinks everything through, and you have a bunch of smart guys around that figure those angles out, so that you don't penalize people that you're not looking to penalize inadvertently, right? I get that. Totally
Yeah.
get that. But, and Noble Steed was a great example of, there should have been more public-private organization, if you will. I guess I'll use a kind word for that, as to how that was supposed to work, right? Because that would have been a huge boon for the water system, basically, to be able to come up onto the westerly part of town, west of College Highway down
Well,
there. But
actually,
it just didn't work out for the way that it was proposed to loop it. Was just impractical at the time. So
Yeah, they looked at it, and I think after TJ sold the sold the development off. The new developer just said, no, we're not gonna deal with water, because he was working with us to stretch the water system up Vining Hill Road to be there. And we had worked out some kind of agreement, and then the new developer said, no, we're gonna do wells. So,
Yeah, there's probably some more color to that story, but
yeah, I'm sure.
it would have been a good deal, but it was the way that it had the loop, right, became very prohibitive. And I get the need for looping, and it's water under the bridge, pun intended, but those kinds of things. But you could have other developments that would like to come in or could come in that, it might be in everyone's interest to provide water to at some point. So we got to kind of figure out a way forward. And, the moratorium's a good step, a step, but you have to have a way out of it. And also when the drought's over, if this drought ends, I don't think it makes a difference for your water system. From what Mr. Soper's saying, we're pumping all the water through it anyway. If we then say, okay, people that are not watering your lawns can water your lawns, we're kind of screwed. We don't have capacity to give for that anyway. Not that we hope that a drought continues, but if the drought's over, do we have the ability as a town to have a watering ban because we don't have capacity? I don't know the answer to that.
I think that will scare away a lot more people than the drought or the moratorium will. If we start just saying, hey, we can't supply it, that's going to be a problem.
Now, keep in mind that this new pump station is supposed to make 1,200 gallons a minute. The most they can get right now, due to the water main, that section from Jerry Drive to the interconnection hasn't been upgraded yet. So we're limited to 700 gallons a minute. That's the most we can put through that station. That pump station is designed to pump 1,200 gallons a minute. It will pump 1,200 gallons a minute as soon as that line is updated. It was part of the original project. The funding ran low, so on forth. You know about it. But if that line gets upgraded, like next summer, you're going to be that much better to the good. You're going to have another 600-700 gallons of water going into the system a minute, and it's going to help us out a lot. Just with our infrastructure that we have now, just need to finish that part.
To help a dumb selectman, what does that do? What is that? Is that 10% more water? Is that 2% more water?
Did you hear that question?
Yeah, who was that directed to?
Dumb selectman. I don't understand. I don't know the difference between 500 and 1,200 gallons per minute. As far as, is that 20 homes? Is that 10% of the whole system capacity? Can you put that into dumb selectman terms for me?
Well, well number 2, one of our sources is 800 gallons a minute in itself.
Thank you.
So
that's the right answer.
You're going to double the capacity of. It's a huge difference.
Sure.
I had to think about it before I answered, but
Kevin, what's our capacity right now?
Yeah.
It's going to be like adding another well.
I mean,
it's important and critical that line gets completed. The job.
I get it, but that's a big answer to the. I mean, that's a big. I have no idea what the capacity is. So
gotcha. Okay.
And so to me, that's a huge number. Like you could say, okay, if we got that line in on College Highway to Jerry Drive, we could pull back the moratorium. We still have to plan for additional capacity, but it would enable us to pull the moratorium. Given our current rate of consumption, we could then have some development in town.
Keep in mind, yes, you can pull a moratorium, technically speaking, but all of a sudden, well number 2 goes down.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Then your existing customers are lacking water. Your fire protection is not going to be there. There's no backup plan.
Yep.
It's going to be very helpful, but in the event that another station goes down, which is possible,
sure,
it could go down for a month with electronics and stuff the way they are, the motors, and there's just no backup plan. That's what's so tricky about it.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'd like to move on from the moratorium into new business.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Doug. Okay, new business, fiscal year 2022 budget.
Yeah, I just want to, I put this on the agenda just to kind of put the bug in your ear. This is budget season. I have not seen the budget sheets yet. Typically, they come out sometime in early to mid-December. But I just want to put the bug in your ear to make you aware of that, and also just have a discussion if there are anything on your mind that we should be adding to the budget. We talked about that, the pipelining from Springfield's transmission main to Jerry Drive. That's going to be the top priority. And that will be in the budget. But if there are any other items that you want to consider, I guess let me know. Think about it if you need to, and get back to me. My hope is that at our January meeting, I'll be able to have all the numbers pulled together, and I can at least do kind of just a check against the rates to make sure that what we're proposing isn't going to have an impact on the rates. Or if it does have an impact on the rates, then we'll talk about that at that point. So certainly the pipelining project is going to be in the request. I don't know what else you have. I know over the summer, if you recall, we had a conversation with a resident who lived over on First Street, and they were asking for the water main to be extended to their property. They were one of, I think, 3 properties that have frontage on First Street that don't have town water. I think the cost of that project was in the range of $40,000 to $50,000. That was the only one that I know has come across before the board over the past year. So again, just have a quick discussion if you want. If you have something in mind, otherwise, if you think of anything, let me know.
Yeah, the only 2 that I remember were the First Street project and the Bugby Road, upgrading that small line that's going up Bugby Road, past the fire extinguisher or the fire hydrant, and it goes up 600 or 800 feet. But we can't connect the 2 because of the ledge on Bugby Road. So that may be something that we just keep waiting and hope somebody who wants to develop that south part of Bugby Road, that property up there, we can gig them with the cost. But I mean, First Street, if it's a small project and we could fit it in, we could add another fire hydrant down in that area. That would be a benefit. I just don't know about looping in that area.
I don't think you can't loop it because of the water pressure. That booster station dead ends up on Bugby Road on Granville Road. With the elevation and everything, it's a matter of water pressure issue as well.
No, I was talking about First Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one's a pretty small project. I think Bugby is going to take a little more thinking, because it's just a small main and there's just a couple houses that would be served by it. And to increase that to 6 inches and put another fire hydrant up there, I think there's not much up there to do with it. Maybe we can pass on that one and do the other one. Or we can look at both of them. We'll think about both of them.
What I'll do is I'll throw some numbers together and look at the budget and look at those 2 of those items and look at the rate impact, and we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, and the next item is the customer portal.
So I think Doug had mentioned this briefly earlier in the call. So there was a discussion about ways to get residents maybe more aware of what their water use is. There are apps out there that are available that you could use on your cell phone. Typical, like, if you do your banking online, think of that for your water service. There are apps that show you how much water you're using. It'll give you alerts, kind of like the alerts that we receive if there's a potential leak alert, or if there's you can set an amount if you use more than say 3,000 gallons in a day. You want to know that. You can put those alerts into your own phone, and it'll give you that information. So we sat down with the vendor. I think this was 2 weeks ago, and went through the process, how it works. I did get a quote from that, which is in your packet. So the quote is set up basically if there's an install cost, like a year one cost to set up the process. And then there are annual costs for maintaining and hosting of the software. So the initial setup cost was about $21,000. And then the annual costs are about $6,000 to $7,000. One of the questions that came up during the call was how many people, sign up for this program, and the rates are typically low unless if the town has some kind of a program in place where they're out promoting this into the public. But typically they're telling us that the sign up rates are somewhere in the range of, I think they said 8 to 13% of the population. And then of that percentage, I asked, okay, well, how many of those are actually using the program? And they're not just a one-time install, or one-time use, but are looking into it frequently. And they just said about 40% of that number are actually using the system, using the app frequently. So 40% of around 10%, about 4% of the population, give or take. Again, that's a pretty small number compared to the cost here, which I think is a pretty significant cost for a program like that. I think my mind, we have better uses for that money, but I guess I want to make sure you're aware of that and have discussion in terms of where you think you guys are thinking.
I think in terms of customer service, it's a great idea, but utilization, the cost seems prohibitive.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of is two things. If Westfield's looking at it to see if there's some way we can share, because it's going to be on, I'm guessing it's going to be on a cloud server. So with Westfield's customer base and our much smaller customer base, it may make sense if they're willing to do it. The other thing is just if we can find some way to put out put the question out to the ratepayers if they're interested in this kind of a system, because of what happened this year. It might be a good time. I don't know how to do that. I wouldn't recommend that we get our own Facebook page, because that'll only incite a riot, I think, if we start posting things on Facebook. But if there's something, a town website, a town page, where we can just put a question out there and have people just answer it casually and see if there's any interest at all in something like this, in using something like this. Because it'd be a shame to spend $55,000 and then nobody even picks it up. There's just so much technology out there. I'd be leery to think that anybody's going to even look at their water consumption. But if we can ask, if there's a way to ask, and I'm pointing my finger at you, Doug, because I think you may know how to do this.
I mean, I had the same thought as you, Dave, was to maybe when at the tail end of the article in the Westfield News, they're going to buy the same exact portal that we got a demo of.
Yeah.
There was no other way to read that based on attending the meeting that Christy and Randy and I went to with the little sales pitch from the guy. And then the gentleman from Westfield said, oh, we're going to put this portal in, and they are using the census water meter. So it's probably the same thing. It's probably worth a phone call to find out if we can somehow tag along with what they're doing. I probably doubt it. They probably want to get their piece. And it did seem crazy expensive to me based on what Randy said. If you get 5% of the people to do it, because if you get it, you get it from your bank or you get it from your credit card today, they don't charge you extra for it. And I don't know what it costs them to implement either, that type of portal. But people are coming to expect that kind of functionality from services and products they buy, whether it's you get a thing on from your credit card when your kid uses the extra card and you get a little text that says, your card was used or your card wasn't present for a transaction, or, to your smart thermostat telling you to change your air filter. I think people might pay attention if they started getting alerts from their water system saying,
Yeah,
dude, your water usage is running 10% over last year, or, hey, suddenly you had 3,000 gallons of water run through your meter. You usually use 200, right? Whatever that number is, it will cause people to do stuff. But it just seemed, if it was 10 grand or something like that, you would go, oh, that's a no brainer. We should do that in a heartbeat. But it was a very significant expense, and a very significant expense to start up, which, given the other spending priorities that there are, I think it's probably better to do. And hopefully there'll be, maybe potentially there's other alternatives, companies that make stuff that can work with this data, and that, because it's our data, it doesn't belong to Census, it's ours, and, maybe we can find things that, maybe there's, some more work to be done to find something else that's maybe not as good, but it's 70% for 30% of the cost. I don't know.
maybe we offer a $5,000 scholarship to a high school student who can develop the app.
It might-
Just
Wouldn't
send
shock
out
me.
instructions and tell them how to read their meter. There's 8 digits on there.
Well,
They
that's
just
the
gotta
thing,
go down and read it every day.
that's the other piece, is you can go to your basement and go look at it, but you know
Right
what,
there.
what's one of the most popular deals right now is the little thing you can screw in the top of your oil tank that'll tell you on your phone how much oil's in your tank in the basement, right?
It's like looking at the odometer on your car. You just go
I
down there and
know.
read it.
I know, but it's like good, but
Just to circle back to you were talking about if we could piggyback off Westfield, I don't think that's an option. Because they're separate systems. We have a separate file that comes from our billing vendor that updates everything. And I don't think they use Munis over there. They might, but I don't know. I don't know if that's what they do. And their billing is separate. Like they bill quarterly. And they're constantly in a billing cycle because there's so many different I don't know, areas of town that they read.
Yeah, that was just my little Christmas wish.
no,
I just
obviously,
don't
right?
think
If you
it's
could,
feasible,
right?
so I wouldn't get your heart set on it.
No, not at all. But it's
No.
at least a discussion worth having, or at least, seeing if there's any, because if we could provide anything, even if we can't provide the billing, because their billing separate from ours, right? But they could see the gallonage, right? You could see your usage, not what your bill is, but just how many gallons went by your meter. And
But
then you
that
could set
was-
alerts,
but
I
the-
don't know.
But the billing was a big part of that because it
Oh, I
was,
know.
this is this bill compared to last bill compared to the bill 2 years ago. Like,
Mm,
and do they read in cubic feet? Kevin, do you know that?
What's that?
Do they read in cubic feet? over there?
I do. We're most towns don't read the gallons like we are accurate. They do probably read in cubic feet.
So that's also
Per 1,000 gallons.
But
And
isn't that just math?
yeah, but
Yeah.
the average person, it doesn't,
No. But I mean, you could present it, you can convert gallons to cubic feet and vice versa. If one is in the other, you can present it however anyway, it
wait,
pie in the sky, worth a phone call, but yeah, it probably will go nowhere. You're right. And I appreciate it.
The problem I see with this is the yearly maintenance fee, really. I mean, the implementation cost of 12,000, about 20 grand, that's one thing, but the $7,000 a year and it goes up, 5%, 10% every year.
How many
I think-
users on the system?
2,670,
80, yeah, something like that.
yeah. Active 70.
It's $3 a user.
But out of that, Randy and I went and figured it out after that, how many people would actively be using it. It was about 130, give or take, that would actively use it.
Yeah, I think,
So that's $58 a user, right? It becomes a different thing, right? Yeah, I get it.
But that's how the public utilities work. You have to take everybody's money and give it to a few people that want to use it, just like the schools and the roads, whatever it might be. The whole system has to pay for that option to be there. I think just the yearly maintenance cost is $3 a user is one thing, but it's a substantial amount of the budget. it's a big number to look at. But also the revenue that we got from these high water bills, that might make people feel better. Hey, my water bill, some people are paying $3,000 where they were usually paying $1,000. At least we're showing that we want to help you out, and say we're going to maybe implement this system.
That was my point with having, putting a question out there somewhere in the public forum and just ask, how many people are interested in this? And if you get nobody answering back, then there's your answer. There's no more discussion needs to be said. And I think you probably get a few, but I really, to be honest with you, I don't think a lot of people are going to be as interested. If we implement it, I think you get additional people looking at it saying, hey, this is cool. But I can't see implementing it without some kind of interest in it.
I just thought it gave people ownership of their data so that they could go into it eyes wide open. Because Christy, once you talk to a lot of these people and go, yeah, that's how much water you use. They're just as surprised by how much water they used as the bill. The bill is just the math based on the gallons or cubic feet. And, people didn't know that until they got the bill. And, a couple people called me and said, well, you should bill me 4 times a year. I'm like, great, we'll add that cost to your bill too. We're basically loaning you money for 6 months of the year, or, loaning you water to pay. Billing you more often doesn't change the bill. You're still going to have to pay it. How about if you knew how much water you're using and maybe you wouldn't water your lawn or wash or do whatever, cut down the loads of laundry, whatever, to cut the water consumption down to get the bill in line. And it, and you could set up those alerts and all this other stuff. So you could, just like you do with your bank and your credit cards today, just give people that ownership. And you're right, people would become vested in it. And, I was surprised by the low take up rate of it. As far as, how many people even from the company selling it, you would think the guy selling you would say, yeah, 130% of your customers are going to want to use this. They're sandbagging you and saying, 9 to 12%, I think was the number of customers will use it. So
And on top of that, Doug, they did say of that 9 or 12%, I mean, the majority of that was actually commercial property, not residential.
We are transitioning to the information age, and the younger generation coming up buying houses, and they're, like the smart thermostat, all that kind of stuff. It all integrates, they want to see what's going on. The live data is huge. And like Doug said, the ownership of your data, being able to go in and see real time what's going on. And when you get that high water bill, then you can go back and look yourself without having to call the water department and have them come out and look at the problem at the meter. So maybe that would save, some of our resources as well. So I think, Dave, that's a good idea. We should set, just put a feeler out there, see what people think, get some feedback from the town, and then go from there with this.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're just guessing. And my guess would be there probably wouldn't be a lot, especially a vast number of our rate users are on the east side of town. They're small properties, small homes. They don't irrigate, I just don't think it would be much of a benefit for most of them. But that's just me saying, would you like to know? I'd ask them. I'd go to every house and ask them, but that just makes my 8 cents an hour a lot less.
when we had a high-speed internet committee that was meeting to try to look at the potential of bringing a second alternative broadband provider into town, and for very short money, and I want to say it was $100 for a month, they signed up for a survey service. And so you could create a survey, put the survey live, and collect data for a month, and then tabulate the data. And I don't know how you would communicate it to your residents, whether you'd put it on the town webpage and then have everybody put it on their Facebook and Twitters and all that other social media stuff to drive participation to it, so you get some data back. But I think it was $100 for a month for SurveyMonkey or something like that. And we used that to present data back to the Board of Selectmen to say, yeah, this is a good idea. And it, before you go and spend $8 million.
Yeah. That's the point I was getting at, is let's find a way to ask for cheap money, and maybe we just save
Sure.
some discussion by finding out there's no interest at all right now.
Mhm.
And we could do it again in a year, or 2 years. Next year, when we have the same discussion, we can say, we got an app we can buy.
I would bet right now there's going to be a lot of interest just because of the feedback we've gotten from the water bills.
Mhm.
You know, there's going to be that. And is this just a cost of doing business in the information age? You know, is this something that is going to be expected at some point?
Yeah.
You know, maybe we get in early and it's cheaper, you know, because we have less customers and that kind of thing.
Based on the cost, we missed the early.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
true.
I can't believe how expensive it was, but whatever. It is what it is.
All right.
I think
Thank you.
there's a survey function on our website.
Really?
I think there might be that you can set up like a polling option. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty certain there is.
Yeah, I'd be into anything just to get the information so we can decide if we want to move forward with this. And I think we just keep it in, it'll move the old business next month and we can decide to discuss it or not.
And can we get quotes from anybody other than EJP?
No, this is a proprietary program, so it's the same system that we use for our meter reading system.
Okay.
It's a census product, and EJP is the only census provider in this region. They're the only certified provider of census.
Okay.
So there are, I guess, on the phone call, they did mention there are other third-party vendors that could provide that service as well. But they're looking, you know, they'd have to somehow import, you know, our data into their format. So I don't know. We didn't got any other vendors. We just stayed with, you know, the vendor that, you know, we knew, and the product we knew. We can reach out to Westfield as well, see what they're using. I'd imagine they're using the census product, but I don't. That wasn't anything specified in the article.
When we talked to the consultant, I had forwarded him the quote and I said, can you just look this over and, you know, see where we're at? Is it high? You know, where is it? And he spoke with the other guy who was on the call and said that, you know, it seemed pretty good. It seemed pretty reasonable for what you're getting. So, I mean, I would only have to assume that if we went with another company, it would probably be more because they don't have, you know, that link with the system already. And then on top of this, there would also be a fee through our billing vendor to have a file change in order to accommodate some information. And I don't know how much that would be off the top of my head, but they don't do anything cheap. So I would assume it would be another couple thousand possibly.
Yeah, I didn't know it was proprietary. So, I mean, that makes sense that we have to go through that one vendor. So, yeah, and having to transfer data, that's just going to add more cost to it. So we can just move on from there.
Yeah, not to belabor the conversation, but there are other costs that would have to probably be considered. So the way our meter system is set up now is we have some customers on the north side and the south side of town where we don't get, you know, readings every time. So meters send out signals every 4 hours. There are some, you know, some dead spots. We do get readings, but it's just not 100% of the time. So you could potentially have a scenario where a customer signs up for this service in one of those areas, and you know, they're checking their phone and it's not changing, and that's because, you know, that data is not coming into our system from their meter due to whatever reason. And you know, for our billing purposes, where we really just need two numbers, you know, two readings a year, and you know, that works just fine for us. But in this type of a situation, you know, they're going to have customers who want to use a service. They're going to expect, you know, these readings to be up to date and accurate, you know, 360, you know, all year long. And our system's not set up for that right now. So if you're looking to do something like that, you also may want to have to put in some kind of a repeater system where we do get all those readings from all of our customers, you know, every single time. And there'd be some substantial cost for that upgrade as well.
Would that be beneficial for the water department? No.
I mean, certainly the more data is beneficial, but I mean, at what point, is it cost effective? I would say probably not. I mean, if we ever have an issue, well, we can always send one of our guys to a property and get that reading. They can just walk to the house, do the touchpad reading like they used to do, and download that data, and we can take that back to the office and analyze it. So in situations like that, it's just as easy to do that.
So this system is basically a customer service issue. That's what it comes down to, is do the customers want it? So I think we go back to what Dave said. We get some feedback from the town and go from there.
That's fine. So I can, Christy, we can look into that survey system you talked about and see how we can set that up and get that out. Doug, maybe I'll have to bug you about that as well to see what you did for the Comcast survey.
Yeah, we didn't get involved with the town on that. We just did it. I looked it up real quick. Apparently we do have it. I didn't even know we had it. Thank you, Christy. That's awesome. So yeah, we could do it probably in your next meeting or whatever, is kind of lay out what your survey looks like what it is you're trying to, because you want to have it be objective and not have the survey steer your answers, and not to get the answer you want, to get the answer you need. And then we spent a lot of time on the HSIC to try to draft the survey to understand not to try to get the answer we wanted, but to get the answer that out of people that, where we were going with this, eyes wide open.
Yeah, we want to know if people are actually going to use it, as opposed to people who think, oh, that's a great idea, but don't even bother, ever opening it.
Like one of your questions is, will you pay $10 a year for this service? Even if you don't have to say that, oh, it's not going to be in your bill as $10, but there's going to be $10 in your water bill is going to be paying for this, or more.
I think the survey will help the public, after all these water bill issues. At least it shows that we are trying to do something to give the people some information. So, we're working towards helping people understand their water bill.
Exactly.
Customer service theater. All right. We want to move on to the DEP regional recognition for outstanding performance and achievement.
Yeah, this was kind of cool. So
Well
we
done.
got a certificate. This kind of came out of the blue about a week ago. We got an email, said that the town of Southwick Water Department was awarded a regional recognition for outstanding performance and achievement. So there's a letter, and then there's also a certificate that's in your packet. Other than what's in this letter, I'm not sure what criteria that Mass DEP was using to make this determination. But certainly that's a noteworthy item, and nice job to all of our guys who worked hard to make this happen here.
Don't forget our guys and girls.
Guys and girls, thank you.
Yep. Congratulations.
Trying to go after
Yeah,
Thank
well
you.
done.
So we printed out a couple of certificates. We've got one at the town hall office and one at the DPW garage. And I think Kevin also has one in his office.
Yes,
So
I
we'll
do.
put these out and proudly display them for the public to see when they can come back into our buildings.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, that's, now do we want to go back to the appointments
That didn't show up.
that didn't show up?
I mean, I think certainly the second one, 55 Hudson Drive, this is their second no-show.
Yeah,
Which one's that?
Hudson Holdings.
Hudson Holdings.
They have an abatement request for $190.69.
So we talked about this at the last meeting. I think we all came to the same conclusion that there's seemed to be some type of either guessing that it was a leaky toilet or a hose that was left on. there was in your packets, you have the charts that Christie printed out.
Yes.
In the middle of June, looks like from between June 8th to June 28th. It wasn't every day, but there was quite a bit of water use during that 2-week period. Again, not quite sure, what the cause was, but it seemed fairly consistent across those days. So that would, kind of lead us to think that there was something that was running or running constantly for a long period of time, such as a toilet or an outdoor faucet.
Yeah. I
Is that
have no
building
doubt.
vacant, Ralph?
No.
Were they weekdays or on the weekend? That looks like during the week, correct?
About 2 weeks.
Well, they're second time no show, so obviously they're not that concerned about the $190.
Yeah. The only point I'd probably make is they are a very low water user. I'm looking at their bill is, they usually use only 5,000 gallons. which
Yeah,
is
they typically get the
10,000
minimum
gallons.
bill
Below the minimum.
every time. Yeah.
I mean, I know they use the water, but it's not a case where they went from 60,000 gallons to 90,000 gallons. And they want a rebate because they use too much water. This is more like we almost owe them 60 or 70,000 gallons of water. So I don't know if you want to consider that, or just since they've blown us off twice, just.
Well, this
deny
also isn't the actual company. This is the owner of the building, not the company using the water, so they could have very well used the water and told their landlord, hey, we didn't use the water.
Is this the company, Randy, or is this a water meter for this one company?
I don't know. It just says on the request form, it says Carol Keenan for
Uh-huh.
Hudson Holdings LLC,
Uh-huh.
55 Hudson Drive. And the description just mentions that it's a small manufacturing company with 5 persons working there. And the only water they use is for bathrooms.
I don't know.
Chrissy, can you look up who the property owner is? Is it Hudson Holdings or is it a different entity?
Hudson Holdings.
KTI Systems Incorporated is the company that's there. They make some type of boat equipment, from what I can see.
Okay.
There's a logging company or something that works out of the back of that place as well.
It's their son, yeah.
Tree company, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if they have an outside faucet. Maybe they should consider shutting it off from the inside, especially if they're not around. Somebody may just be using the water, not knowing who it belongs to, or thinking that it's all being paid by the landlord by the rent. So
I
they're
have
washing
the
their
owner
equipment.
is Hudson Holdings on both the real estate and water. It's the same. So I'm not sure if they bought the building under one business name and then run a different one out of it.
Keenan Filters is the name of the company that's based there. So the name Keenan came up there, right? Probably owns Hudson Holdings too.
Yeah, and the tree company as well as a Keenan. So
That's Drew Keenan?
I believe so.
well, do we have a motion on this one?
I think based on them, blowing us off twice, I would make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to deny their abatement request.
Okay, I'll second it. Any discussion? No? All right.
You have to do a roll call vote.
Yes. How do you vote, John?
John Kane, yes.
Dave Meswar, yes. Okay, appointment number 1. Another abatement. I can scroll back up quickly.
Yeah, this was, last name is Rothman, 113 Feeding Hills Road.
Yeah.
So they're requesting an abatement. You can see their explanation on the cover page. Other than saying that they don't believe they use that much water, there was no other, rationale or indication given on here. They did do a comparison to their last summer bill from 2019. And certainly there was an increase in usage from last summer. This year, their usage was just over 53,000 gallons for those 6 months. Last summer, they were at 32,000 gallons. But if you look at the 2 summers prior to that, they were very close to where their usage was this past summer. The summer of 2018, they were at 47,000 gallons. And the summer of 2017, they were at 62,000 gallons. So even higher than this billing period.
Yeah.
We looked at their hourly data. There didn't seem to be any spikes or any smoking guns. That would indicate like a leak or a outdoor water use. It was just, use that you would typically see throughout the day, but in their eyes elevated.
Yeah.
In their rationale, they pointed out the months of April, May, and June in particular, saying that those were higher than the last year, their comparison to last year, which they were, but they didn't mention anything about the months of July, August, and September, which I'm assuming they're saying is back to normal.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So there's nothing in here that I saw that would, seem like there was anything out of the ordinary. We also, it's not in this packet, but Christie pulled up their chart for their use for the full year, starting in January. And you can see their usage, from January through September, which here is on the screen here, looks pretty indicative of typical use. Nothing out of the ordinary. I know they want to say that April, May, and June were high, but when you look at the months around them, those are the months where you would expect to see an increase like that. And then
Yeah.
after July hit, the water ban went into effect, which may be why they use much less water in July. Less water used during that month.
yeah, it certainly doesn't rise to the occasion of being impossible that they use that water since they did it 2 years earlier. I don't see anything that says it's impossible and that they probably didn't use it. Especially since we have a meter that's measuring it. Do I have a motion on this one?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny this one as well, deny this.
And I second it. Any discussion? All in favor?
John Kane, yes.
Dave Meswar, yes. So the motion carries. Do I hear a motion? Do we have any other new concerns from anybody? Wants to weigh in before we adjourn this marathon meeting? No, John?
No, I'm
No.
good. I think I've said all I needed to say. Kevin or Randy, Christie, anything?
Just stay on top of that finance committee so we can get that water main done.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
we have to do to get it into next year's budget.
How did our revenue look, with these water bills? My bill was considerably higher than it was, in previous years and everything. That's my fault. But how did our revenue, match up with this? Is there any way to, bring that in front of the finance committee to get things moving along or what?
Yeah, I do have some numbers on that, John. So this past summer, we billed out about $200,000 more than our last summer. So that's certainly a good thing. We did have some significant debt that hit the books this year. So that has to get factored in as well. But I did a rate analysis before you joined the board, and the board voted for a rate increase. I did project some costs for the water main replacement project into that rate. So I'm hopeful that, and I'm gonna do another look at it, but once I get some firm pricing, but I'm hopeful that rate increase that was voted on over the summer will be sufficient to cover the cost for the water main project.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think we
just
should,
curious.
I think we should definitely move that forward. I think we should. And some other things we can consider as well as, whatever, backup pumps, or even a spare pump, whatever it takes to have a backup for the system. That might be good for capital, to keep those well pumps going. At least we don't want to have a well down for a month waiting for parts. I think that would be bad.
Oh, real bad.
Some kind of parts survey to see what's out there, see what we could do. System upgrade, get that at least on the books for at least the following year. Maybe get the water main done this year and some other upgrades done next year to try and boost this up. But I think when Ed comes back next month, we should really put that on the new business. Water upgrades for the moratorium. So
Yeah, that's one of the things that, the public and the town are really gonna be pressing is that moratorium. And
Mhm.
just to figure it out and give some answers to everybody would be huge. What's
Okay.
the equipment that we have, is the equipment, is there continuity between our pumps and each different pump station? Are they the same manufacturer and that kind of thing? Or are they all kind of just?
No, they're all a lot of different, they're different size motors, everything.
Okay.
Anytime you want, I'll take you around and show you, give you a better idea of what we're looking at. I'd
I'll
love
have to
to.
do that. I'll take you up on that for sure. 'Cause I would love to-
Absolutely.
yeah, I will too.
Yeah, I'd love to show you guys firsthand what we're looking at, so you'll have, I think you'll have a much better understanding of what we're up against.
All right.
That would be awesome.
Okay. You want to adjourn the meeting and then we can discuss that? Maybe get a time when we can all meet together?
Sure.
I get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second it. All in favor?
John Kane, yes.
Dave Mesmore, yes.